When I talk to people a lot about nutrition, they're like, how do you keep your motivation? You can't be motivated every single day. It's way too hard, but you can be disciplined. You need to make the decision to be disciplined.
Rhian Stephenson, the founder of ARTAH, one of the most elevated wellness companies in the UK.
Nutrition really is the foundation of health. Found that it was just so instrumental in lifting that brain fog.
We sit down to unpack what it really takes to create a standout brand.
You need to take the criticism, you need to take the feedback. That's a high performance mindset.
What inspired Rhian to launch ARTAH while pregnant?
As long as you're really strong in your purpose and you believe in what you're trying to create, you just have to try to do it whenever you can.
Her secret to showing up every single day, especially when it's hard.
It's all about the trade-offs. There's never not work you can do. Because of that, you do have to set boundaries, right?
And the truth about wellness.
When I'm not taking care of my nutrition and my fitness, I find it way harder to be the kind of mom I want to be and be the kind of boss I want to be.
So whether you're launching your own brand or just trying to navigate it all through the crazy demands of work and motherhood, this one's for you. This episode of CEO Mum is brought to you by ARTAH, the science-backed supplement brand that supports your body from the inside out. Personally, I have been using and loving their essential magnesium, especially to help me with my sleep, because let's be honest, every working mum with young kids knows that deep level of exhaustion. And I love that they blend cutting edge science with high quality natural ingredients to target the body's systems, not just symptoms, so you can really see and feel the difference. They are not about quick fixes. Their award-winning supplements and nutrition programs are designed to create real long-lasting change. And as a thank you to our listeners, ARTAH is offering you 20% off. Just use the code CEOMUM. That's CEOMUM at checkout and explore their incredible range. Rhian Stephenson, thank you so much for joining me on CEO Mum. Welcome to the table.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited.
You're a mum of two.
I am.
You have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old.
She's turning 3 in 2 weeks.
Yeah, 3-year-old. How has motherhood changed your approach to wellness and to work?
Yeah. So I get a lot of slack when I say this, but it's actually made me more invested in my wellness because I know the cost of when I'm not, right? So like you said,
what is that cost?
Bad, like I have no patience, I'm snappier, I can't handle it, I feel more guilt, right? Like when I'm emotionally unstable, I find it way harder to be the kind of mom I want to be and be the kind of boss I want to be. And when I'm not taking care of my nutrition and my fitness, that's what happens, right? Like one thing right now, I don't really drink alcohol. And everyone's like, don't you miss it? And like, there's times, of course, I get home, I'm like, oh, I'd love some wine. But actually, alcohol affects me very, very negatively from a mental perspective, and I feel quite anxious, and I don't sleep well. So what you do, like when you're mom, as you know, there's no sleep-ins. Like there's no Saturday sleep-in. You're still up at 6 or 5:30. You're up every night. There's no makeup time. So I just feel unhinged for like 7 days after I drink. I'm a wreck. Yeah. And so it's like, it's so not worth it for me right now. And I'm sure that will change. And I hope it will, because I'm just like it's something I do enjoy. But right now, when my kids are so young and my business is so young, taking care of myself is a priority because I want to be like a fun mom. I want to have energy. And I want to be as happy as I can under the pressure that we're under when you have to run a business, right?
And for those who don't know, what is ARTAH? And what inspired you to create the brand?
So ARTAH is an award-winning supplement and nutrition brand. And I started ARTAH a couple of years ago because when I was a child, I was a really, really sick kid. So for years and years and years, I was really ill and we didn't know why. I went around to tons of specialists. I had acid reflux. I had to sleep upright. I had stomach migraines. I was constantly ill. I was constantly on antibiotics. And nobody could find anything wrong with me. And so kind of at the end of it, my mom had been told like maybe she just has a weak constitution or she's just a sick kid. So as a mom, you're kind of like, so a couple of years later, my mom decided to take me to see a nutritionist who was also very much into functional medicine. And she basically found out that I had an allergy to the protein found in milk. So I had never been tested for it because I was older. So that would be like quite abnormal. And also I was only tested for lactose intolerance, which is what you would normally look for. So really it was all about the food that I was eating. So by working with her and cutting out the thing that was making me ill, my whole life transformed, and it made me just so passionate about the world of nutrition and what it can do. So
Was that something that started later on in your life as well? You hadn't had any signs before?
So I was probably sick from the age of 5 or 6. Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, late for cow protein allergy, but not late in life. So I just found that by the time I was able to fix it, I was in my teens, kind of late teens.
Yeah.
I was just totally floored by what it could actually feel like to be well, because I was so used to just feeling terrible. And so one of the great things about that experience is it's made me so motivated and like so intrinsically motivated to just take care of my body and try to help others do that as well.
You were the CEO of a big fitness company, and then you moved into creating
ARTAH.
ARTAH.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that and what that journey was like.
So first I was in clinical practice. So I trained as a nutritionist and I really loved that. But this was like almost 20 years ago now. So nutrition wasn't then what it is now. So people still thought it was like weird, a fad, kind of fringe. They didn't really think it was a science. So I ended up getting pretty frustrated with clinical practice because I felt like I was seeing people who only wanted to go on fad diets to lose weight really quickly. And if you tried to talk about anything meaningful, they would be like, So I started to do some brand consultancy, and that's where I met the woman she now does our PR, but she was doing the PR for a new fitness brand, and she asked me to consult. I ended up being the CEO there, which I absolutely loved. My background is also in sports, so I was a competitive swimmer. So just the whole idea of building a community around something healthy was really something I was passionate about. And it was really interesting there because although people were falling in love with the transformative power of movement and they were getting fitter, they weren't necessarily getting healthier. And everyone was still talking about the same thing. Like they still had IBS, they still had headaches, they still had anxiety, they still felt wired and tired. Like all of those lifestyle things that just because you start to exercise, they aren't necessarily going to go away because nutrition really is the foundation of health. So I started to think like, it would be so great to get back into that world. And it is kind of my first love. And so I had my first baby, I left the fitness brand, and I decided now was the time. I was also just really passionate about supplements because they were such a strong part of what made me well back when I was trying to get better. And when I was in clinical practice, what I noticed was when you use, high quality practitioner grade brands, your outcomes were really great. And then when you use ones that were kind of high street, that weren't high quality at all, the outcomes weren't. And so I really wanted to create this brand that fused nutrition with supplementation to make sure that you had kind of a practitioner-led solution, but it also still kind of looked chic and felt premium and felt like it was something you really wanted to invest in.
So tell us, what are some of your favorite products within ARTAH?
So my personal favorite for myself is Enhanced NAD Complex because I found that it was just so instrumental in lifting that brain fog I've had since pregnancy. Like since I've had my girls, just like the fatigue of all the admin and the lack of sleep and the stress, it's really impacted my mental kind of speed and my clarity. And I kind of felt like I had this brain fog and I was beginning to think, is this my new norm?
Yeah.
But when I started taking that, it just lifted it and it made me feel incredible. And then my other favorite is a staple is Essential Creatine, which we just launched. It's funny too because that one, the creatine products, we often associate them with fitness and bulking and athletes, but actually it can be transformative for women, for cognitive energy, for menstrual health. So it's something that since I've been taking it, my body just feels revitalized. I can train harder. My mind is sharper. I just really love that one.
How long do you recommend somebody take these kind of supplements for before they start seeing effects? Because I know with me, sometimes I'm like, I've taken it for 2 days and I want the change, but what's a realistic time to commit to?
We're naturally impatient, right? So as soon as you decide you want to feel better, you want to feel better right now. And I was in the change room once at a fitness class and some girl came up to me and she was like, I've been taking your supplements and I really love them, but they took a really long time to kick in. And I was like, oh no, how long? And she was like 10 days. And I was like, that's amazing. I was like, that's incredible. So there are going to be ones that I kind of call high impact ones. And those ones you can usually feel quite soon, kind of within days or weeks. That's things like cellular hydration, which are electrolytes, the creatine, right? But of course, it all depends where your starting point is, right?
Yeah.
So I'm someone who's very tired. I don't eat very much meat, so I'm not getting kind of any exogenous creatine. I'm a bit older, so like, I mean, older in terms of your biology. So I think that like I am relatively low on the creatine. So when I take it, I feel a big boost. Whereas for somebody who's younger, who eats a ton of meat, they might not feel it as fast. But usually with those, you'll feel them within a couple weeks. There's some that you might not feel at all, right? So for vitamin D3, which we all know we should take, that's the kind of thing where if you don't take it, you know, your immunity and your energy and your mood can suffer. But it's not like when you take it, you feel the boost, right? It's usually when you're like, oh, I'm reflecting and actually I didn't really get sick last year. Like those are ones that are a bit more of a slow burn. So it's really important to kind of understand what your expectations are when you're turning to a supplement, because a lot of people want it to work really quickly. And these aren't medications, right? They're going to support you, but they're not going to just kind of start that day and be super strong.
ARTAH, the brand, just feels really elevated and beautiful, from like the packaging to obviously it's science backed. How did you approach that brand building process?
So brand building is something I really love because I like to think of a brand as a personality, right? And I think one of the things that I was really frustrated with when I was in clinical practice is, you know that certain supplements work. And a lot of the practitioner ones were in like white plastic bottles that looks very medicinal or felt kind of cheap and were confusing. So the names were odd, like 8506. And you're like, oh, what does this mean? So it doesn't feel like something you really want to invest in. When you contrast that to skincare, there's no reason why we should want to be like, oh, look at my skincare. But it's because it's packaged beautifully. It feels like an experience. It feels like something you really want to invest in, and it's going to give something back. And I really wanted ARTAH to feel like that as well. So that's why we kind of really wanted the packaging to feel chic, to feel elevated, to feel like you could put it out and have it look really cool, not like a medical bottle of
that
something.
you want to just hide away.
That you kind of want to hide away. It feels
Oh,
heavy.
of course, that goes at the top of the shelf of all the other like medicines and stuff that you have. No, it's definitely something that I'm very sold by aesthetic. So I was like,
this
it's
really important.
Fits the rest of my cabinet filing, and I want to show that off.
My dad used to ask me how I pick wines, and I was like, the label. Like,
It's so true.
My 22-year-old
I don't know anything else.
Was like, that one looks pretty.
That looks pretty, yeah. And it's from New Zealand. Yeah,
perfect.
Where were you in your life when you started the brand, and how long before you was able to get it off the ground? Were you already a mum at that point?
Yes. So I had my first baby in March 2020. And then I left my other business in September 2020. By the following September, we were closing our fundraise for ARTAH, but I was also pregnant with my second. So I got pregnant with my second kind of unintentionally in the fundraising process. And I was a bit like, oh my God, I need to close this really quickly. Because, it's one thing raising when you're a little bit pregnant than when you're trying to raise if you're like 8 or 9 months pregnant. It just makes it harder. It's already harder for women to get investment.
How old was your first daughter?
So when we finished our raise, she was 1.5, and I was pregnant with my second, Lola.
So you were fundraising when your daughter was 1.5 years old, and you were pregnant with your second daughter. Fundraising,
and
during
in the middle,
COVID.
I had a miscarriage as well.
And that is no small feat.
No.
Tell me about a day in your life at that point.
So we got a nanny who worked kind of part-time, and I would do my mornings with Maisie, and then I'd work while the nanny had her, and then I'd have her again in the afternoon. And so, but then when it gets unsustainable quite fast if you're going to work full time and start a big business. So then we got her full time. And then, I was just, it's just the normal work stuff, right? Like you're up pounding it all day. Then I really made an effort to kind of stop at a certain time. So back then I'd stop at 5 to make sure that I had the few hours before bedtime with her, but then it just means you have to log on again, right? So I think that's another thing for moms. Like for me, it's really important for me to be home for them as many nights as I can. But that means I need to compromise and sign back on. So it's all about the trade-offs, right? So either I can stay at work till 6 or 7 and not see my kids, or I have to stop, have that time, then work again. And it's all about just accepting that, right? Because if you want to run a business, there's never like not work you can do.
Oh yeah, there's never not work.
Yeah, because of that, you do have to set boundaries, right? Like you can't just work all the time. So you have to be like, this isn't important. I need to go to bed.
Anyone that is raising money, what is some of the advice that you'd give based on your experience?
Mental stamina. Mental stamina is important. It takes so long. It's pretty soul destroying. You're going to get way more no's. Like for every yes, unless you're incredibly lucky, you're going to get 100 no's. So, and that's one thing I didn't expect, because at my previous business, you know, it kind of came with the funding. I didn't really have to do that much. And so with this one, you know, you start from scratch, and it's a daunting process. It's scary. Like I was so self-conscious. I had to pitch to rooms of people. It was just hard. And then also we got kind of to heads of terms, and then they put this one kind of fund they pulled out, and I had to start from scratch. And I almost didn't start again. Like I was like, this is too hard.
Yeah.
I cannot do it. I'm not going to do it. I just can't. And it's just emotionally exhausting. It's a roller coaster.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the biggest things to be prepared for.
You had a really credible career
Yes.
prior to that,
Yes.
but this was your first time as a founder.
Yes.
Did you ever feel imposter syndrome going
Yes.
into those rooms, and how did you overcome it and have to kind of fake it till you make it to a degree, I guess?
Well, if I'm totally honest, I felt more imposter syndrome the first time around with the fitness brand, because obviously that was my first time, because I went from being in clinical practice to all of a sudden being a CEO. And I was like, so this time I did have the confidence that actually I can build a good brand. I know what it takes. I've done it. I know the hard work. But the first time I certainly did. And this time I felt a bit of imposter syndrome, because I think whenever you're going for investment, they're like, what's this huge idea that's going to change the entire world? And you kind of feel like you have to make things way bigger than they are. But actually, you can still have an incredibly solid and transformative brand without it being like new technology or like a new idea in tech that's going to revolutionize, right? Like they're still incredible brands that just do things really well. And I think I really had to lean in to that and being confident in that, not that we had like a new tech that we were going to launch, you know, because I felt a bit of a pressure.
Yeah. So you don't have to do anything that's so, you know, innovative. There's so much more space for the everyday products. And as long as I always think adding value to the world in some way, or like solving a problem in some way, then there's a market for it, I'm sure. Building a brand when you have a 1.5-year-old.
Yes.
You are about to hit, you're in the toddler space.
I wasn't ready for it. Yeah.
What made you start the brand then?
I loved being a part of the fitness brand and creating something really magical. I also had already known my whole life that I really wanted to run a nutrition brand, right? I have a notebook full of formulations from when I was like 25, because I used to just really be like, what would I do? And so it's something I've been passionate about for a really long time. And it's something I wanted to do before I went into fitness. So I kind of already had a lot of the blueprint there. I obviously then learned how to actually run a business and actually build one. So I think then when I left that brand, I was just like, what am I going to do next? I need to just start now. And in hindsight, look, there's good and bad things. Like I'm sure I would have benefited if I took a bit more time to just relax and slow down and recover. But also sometimes you just feel like you need to keep the momentum. So I kind of went into it. I just thought I could do it.
And you're on the roll, on the road. And
I wasn't expecting to get pregnant. So that threw a bit of a challenge in the works. But there's never a perfect time, because then what? Then they're 3, and then your baby's 1. Like there's never a perfect time to start a business when you're a mom. There's just all the different times, right? I think it's always going to be challenging. It's always going to create its own set of barriers and, emotional kind of impact on you and what you think you should do. And, so I think you just need to, as long as you're really strong in your purpose and you believe in what you're trying to create, you just have to try to do it whenever you can.
Where did you get the drive and momentum from when you were in the thick of pregnancy and juggling a 1.5-year-old?
Yeah. One of the things I've always been quite good at is kind of the discipline of work. So because I was an athlete, the discipline of hard work is like drilled in to me. So even if you're not motivated, you're disciplined, because you're not always motivated. And I think that that's really important for people to understand, because certainly when I talk to people a lot about nutrition and weight and fitness, they're like, how do you keep your motivation? And you can't be motivated every single day. It's way too hard, but you can be disciplined. And so it's about setting yourself up into the routine and the discipline of trying to get things done. Knowing you're not always going to be motivated is actually quite helpful, because then you don't feel like, oh, I'm failing because I'm not motivated, right? So I think that really has carried me through so much of my life in terms of work and parenting.
I feel like I've just had a light bulb moment.
It's true though, right?
Giving yourself that permission to not feel like you have to always be happy and excited and want to show up, and then also not listening to the voice when you have those days, as we all will, where you're like, I can't do it, you're rubbish, this is really hard, and not stepping away then. Just maintaining that discipline and keep moving forward.
So like this morning, I woke up at 5:30 so I could run, because I am so frazzled if I don't exercise that it's just not worth it, right? Like it's way better to wake up earlier and to exercise than to not, because I find it much harder to cope with my day, with my kids. And when I woke up, I wasn't motivated. I was tired. It was raining this morning, but I did it. And I did it because I know 100% I'll feel better afterwards. So, but it wasn't like easy. And I wasn't like putting on my shoes and like, doing my Instagram, like my morning routine. Like I was like, ugh. And then I came back and I was feeling great. And I was feeling calm and I could handle my kids. And I dove right into my work. And it's just about those habits every single day, and then how to stack them.
What have been some of your key growth milestones?
Last year was a really big year for ARTAH. We kind of grew overnight. So we were doing well in year one, not as well as I had hoped, but it was such a hard year because of COVID, and then like the markets were insane, and so there was just a lot of uncertainty and the cost of living. And so last year we kind of went from being okay to doubling the revenue like overnight. And that happened just through, it felt almost instantaneous, but when you look back, of course it's not. It's the effect of tons of hard work and consistency. So I think sometimes it's easy to look at everything and say like, oh, it just clicked. But actually it didn't just click. You work really hard. It's not always easy. And then when it clicks, it clicks.
Were there some specific areas that you felt that you were doing exceptionally well at that worked?
We had some incredible press last year. So a journalist did one of our nutrition plans, and it ended up in the Sunday Times. And the headline was "The Diet Plan That Changed My Life in 21 Days," or something like a really powerful headline. But it was great because it was a male, and he was actually talking about how our nutrition plan helped his mental health. So helped his anxiety, helped his kind of panic, helped his energy. And that really just catapulted us because, and look, I loved that piece because it wasn't about weight. Yes, of course, our plans can help you with weight, but it was all about the power of food. And he used our enhanced nootropics to really hone in on this outcome that is so important, which is mental health and energy, right? And so I think that really just helped to catapult us.
Can you share one mistake that actually helped you level up?
I think certainly in my first business, I thought that as a CEO, I had to do everything. And if I wasn't, that was a failure. And so I think as a first-time CEO, you can hold on to too many things, which is very damaging to the brand, right? Like you need a team with a whole skill set to be able to be as successful as possible. And so I think I just tried to push harder and harder and harder in things that were just outside of my skill set, instead of taking a step back and being like, I need to build a high-performing team, right? And so that's something that I really carried through into ARTAH. I know, you absolutely cannot do everything on your own. And so I think that, but you learn a lot. So I guess the positive is you learn a lot, but you also learn a lot of hard things. Like I've just slowed myself down massively because I haven't gotten the right kind of help. You need to have a growth mindset. Otherwise it's too hard. Like you need to take the criticism, you need to take the feedback, you need to do things wrong. And instead of being like, I did something wrong, my life is over, be like, how do we analyze this? Was there anything good? Why didn't it work? Okay, we go again, right? And it's like, that's the growth mindset. That's a high performance mindset. It's about like taking all that info and using it and getting better, and not using it to let you feel like you're a failure or you are wrong.
Do you have any advice for aspiring CEO mums that may be just a bit afraid to take that leap?
I think it's really important to be super passionate about what you're going to do, right? Because I think a lot of the times being a CEO or being an entrepreneur is romanticized, and there are incredible things about it, but it's so hard and it's all consuming. And if you're not really passionate and you don't have this really strong sense of purpose around why you want to do it, it can be really tough to miss the kids stuff and not be there as much for something you are incredibly bought into. So I think that as long as you really feel that, you should do it.
Has motherhood changed how you approach your business versus when you weren't a mum and you were running this previous company? Has your attitudes changed in any way? How has it showed up differently?
I mean, I think I'm more efficient, but I think all moms are so efficient, right? Like, I mean, the more you have to do, the more you do. So I think like it hasn't changed my approach to work in any fundamental way. It's made me more passionate about women's health and helping women through their health, because I've now been through pregnancies, I've now been through miscarriages, I've been through postpartum, and it is so hard. It's like, it's just a test of your stamina, mental, physical, everything. And so it's actually made me far more passionate about that. Not that I wasn't before, but when you don't experience, you have no idea. It's just this, it sounds hard. Until you've been through it, as you know. I mean, you have twins. I can't even imagine having twins. It's not something you can actually get till you do it. And so it's kind of made me more passionate about helping women really address all those underlying kind of issues and hone in on the importance of taking care of their health, because I think we also get so much conflicting advice from doctors. I mean, my doctor was like, oh, treat yourself to cake and pasta and ice cream. And I was like, okay, but you have no idea what I do or how I feel. And you're basically just telling women to eat cake all pregnancy. I'm not saying we should never enjoy it, but there's no education on how to fuel yourself, what could happen, how hard it is to recover after pregnancy.
Oh gosh.
So, I mean, I just found the whole thing quite mind-blowing.
Speaking about recovery and taking care of yourself and feeling supported, what support systems help you thrive? Do you have help at home? Do you have help in the business?
Yeah, well,
yourself?
So at home, I mean, my husband is a really strong ally. He's my biggest fan. So he's really supportive of me being in business and working hard. But we're both expats, so we don't have that kind of family that you could just call on. We do have a nanny, which I'm very thankful for, and we couldn't do what we do if we didn't have her, just because, our work is really long hours and unpredictable, and my eldest is in school but my youngest isn't. So I mean, there's that. And then look, I think one of the of course I have friends and all that stuff, but that's one of the things you kind of need to compromise on, just in terms of how much or that I have. So I don't see my friends as much as I'd like, but they're always there. If you pick up the phone,
I guess that's it. When you're an expat, you don't realize that you've come to a new country. You don't have, you kind of, I definitely did take for granted the fact that I have family in 3 members of my family live in my postcode.
There you go.
That is support that I literally just did not think about.
Take it.
And grandma being around and having her so available and flexible. That is such a privilege, and you need that. And you not having it, and for people that are listening that might be thinking, wow, I don't have any family in the area either.
It's really hard.
I think thinking about preparing financially for paid support in some way, or
it's a lot. It's a lot. It costs me money to go to work, unfortunately. And that's that's the state for so many of us. But we've made the bargain that actually it will pan out in the long run. We've kind of taken that chance. And also it's important for me to be fulfilled and doing, but it's a lot, and it's expensive, and it's hard. So I think that it's important to go into it also with eyes open.
That's really good. It's good to know, just to take tips. Do you believe in balance? And what does that mean for you these days, especially as a wellness founder?
Yeah, well, it's funny because everyone, when I'm interviewed, they're like, how do you have balance? I'm like, no, I don't have balance. And I think, and I'm sure a lot of moms will say the same, it's not about having balance. it's about actually accepting that you don't have balance. And that's what I think is the most important thing. Because if I'm always striving for balance, it's not going to happen. There's no way it's going to happen. And if you're upset about it, that's what creates that suffering, right? Then you're always like, I'm out of balance. I haven't done this. I think the key thing for me has been accepting that these are the priorities and this is what it's going to take. So these are the things that are going to kind of fall away. And I'm okay with that because it's a stage. And because of that, I need to invest my time in other things. And I think just like checking in with yourself and doing that and understanding like it's too hard to be totally balanced, but what are the things that will really kind of make you feel good and fulfilled. So maybe you're not seeing your friends as often, but every 6 months you have a little friend kind of like a trip away.
Yeah. So
but
it's
then
like preparing for it in the long run. But do you have a certain kind of framework or approach or strategy for figuring out what is a priority? Because everything always feels like a priority. I'm always like reactive and trying to get on top of everything all at the same time. But how do you approach how you prioritize what needs to be done?
One thing that really helps me is like to journal. And I don't do it like every day I journal, but like sometimes when I get really overwhelmed, I have to like sit down and write everything out just so I can see it, because I'm like, get it out of my mind. It's all in there. It's crashing around. And then you kind of just can workshop your way through it. And then I think you need to practice it, right? Like it's really hard. It's something that even when you know what's important, it's not easy to stay motivated or to just have it happen. You have to practice it. You have to stay in the framework of having that be easy, if that makes sense. Like you have to create those habits that set up a framework or like a system.
I love a framework and I love a system. I'm such a like system oriented person, and I feel like what I get from you is like discipline is key. How can we start implementing discipline in our lives?
I think it's consistency, right? You just have to kind of, maybe if it's all new to you, you write down one thing that you think is going to be impactful. That's low lift. Like don't make it complicated, because I find my husband always tries to make things so big and complicated that I'm like, I can't start there. Like we'll go to one yoga class and he's like, let's do 4 classes a week. I'm like, you know what I mean? It's like, start with something small and achievable that you can tick off and do every day. And then you kind of build your confidence, right? Because as you tick it off and as you do that small thing, you get the confidence that actually maybe you do have discipline, because again, it's not something that like, I wasn't born with it. I was trained into it.
I love that.
So you kind of have to train for every aspect of your life. And I guess that's taking more of an athlete approach, but you need to train to be good at most things. Like, I mean, there's some people, of course, who are naturals at stuff, but overall, you know, it takes a lot of work. And so as your life becomes more complex, you really need to like find ways to train yourself to thrive in that environment and to like train your energy and to prioritize that. And I think investing in your health and well-being is one of the most important ways to do that, because when your energy is good, like when your blood sugar is good, you aren't going like this with your mood, with your energy. Everything is easier, right? So even though in the moment something really sweet and ultra processed might feel like, I need this, you know that actually it's going to probably make you hungry and anxious and so it's like, it's just it's the same with me and alcohol, right? Like I'm like, oh, that glass of wine would be so nice, but then actually the lack of sleep and the anxiety, it's not worth it. So like a bit of it is you need to make the decision to be disciplined, and it's not easy, but you have to like take that hard line. But it's like, what's more important? Is it my glass of wine, or is it how I feel for the next 7 days with my kids? When you put it that way, you're like, well, that's how I feel.
Are there any daily routines or rituals or even boundaries that you swear by specifically to protect your well-being?
Yeah, so I move every day. So, and that doesn't mean I do a big exercise, kind of like, I don't go to classes, but I'll either run or I'll do a little workout at home, or if I have time and someone's with the kids, I go to the gym, but I move every day. Okay. And on days where I feel like I'm exhausted, I'll walk into the office, right? So like I find a way to move every day, because movement is so important, and that's really something that gets my head in the right way. I'm really quite regimented with my nutrition, not in terms of, you know, I don't eat the same thing every day, but I eat in a way that I know really fuels me. So I don't eat ultra processed food. I don't have alcohol right now, and I don't eat, you know, lots of added sugar. So just really making sure that I'm fueling my body for me makes the world of difference, because I don't sleep that much because my kids don't like to sleep yet. And then also, as you know, I'm sure, like when you're so much on at work and your kids are up, that your mind is just like, ding. And so it's just so hard to get that restful sleep. So I find that when I'm exhausted, the better I eat, the easier it is, right? Because when you're tired, you're already going to be a little bit insulin resistant. You're going to be hungrier. You're going to be more sensitive to sugar. So then if you eat it, then it's just a roller coaster, right? So like I'm really kind of set in the way that I eat. I find that's really important. And where I've always needed to get better, which I'm working on, is doing something for my mind, right? Because I've always used exercise as my form of kind of mental health. But sometimes you're tired, right? Sometimes you're like, I don't have time. I'm so exhausted.
I'm so physically drained that
I can't do exercise.
I can't do exercise.
Yeah. So finding just a couple minutes each day, whether it's doing some breath work or even just like sometimes I just lay on the floor and get my legs up and I just breathe. And I'm just like, I just need to take some time, especially after bedtime.
Oh yeah, that crazy bedtime routine run.
I feel fried. It feels like I've literally run a marathon. Like I'm totally exhausted and I'm like, So just doing something to just change that state is really important.
Was there ever a point in your journey where you almost gave up?
Yes, many.
Really?
Many, of
When?
course.
And why?
Well, the first time I almost gave up was when I found out I was pregnant. So like just at the very start, because I was like, oh, well, no one's going to invest in me when I'm pregnant, because look, it's already so hard for women in particular to get funding. And then let alone you're pregnant with a child at home. I mean, that's really hard. So I didn't think I could do it. My husband, thankfully, was like really supportive and he helped with that. Then we got to like the end of the fundraising process where we had agreed that it was happening. It was going ahead. All we had to do was sign.
You were getting the money.
We're getting the money, like money in the bank. We were already celebrating and they pulled out and I had to kind of start from scratch.
And they pulled out. And you think that you're about to launch.
And when you get to that far with a fund, usually you then have to sign like terms where you aren't going out to other. So I had stopped raising because I was like, well, this is perfect. So that was the second time there's so many times that you just want to be like, this is too hard. Like why am I doing this? This is so hard.
And I feel like it takes a certain focus to then go, I'm going to keep going and I want this and I'm going to stand up and keep going. What was it for you that made you go, that's not going to knock me. We get back up.
I think it goes back to the purpose and the belief in what you're doing. Like I'm so bought into ARTAH and what we stand for and how much we can help people and how important nutrition is for everybody. That it's just something I feel I've got to do. And so I think if your purpose is really strong and you're really passionate, you'll get back there. And I think I know from just my experience at my other brand and being an athlete, like just because you feel like it's over, it doesn't mean it's over, right? Like, I mean,
I love that.
You can
just because you feel like it's over doesn't mean it's over.
Your feelings are feelings. They're there, but they're not facts. So just because one day you're like, I can't do this, it's all over. Like, just let yourself have that. And then the next day you have to be like, okay, pick yourself up. Let's go again. I also think like self-leadership, that's something you really have to get into if you're going to be, because you have to talk yourself out of these things because it's so hard. Like you kind of need to coach yourself into, okay, what do I need to do? How do I solve this? Who can I ask for help? And like, you really need to kind of cultivate that internal dialogue with yourself to be able to, because whilst you do build a team, being a founder or a CEO, it's very solitary, right? You don't really have a colleague that you can vent to the same way as if you weren't, because it's not appropriate. So, it's really challenging to balance that energy.
And my last question is, what does being a CEO mum mean to you?
I think I've said it before, but I'll say it again. It's just that mental and physical stamina. Like you just need energy. It's just about energy, right? Like your kids, they're incredible and they're the most magical thing ever, but they take so much of your energy. So like you need to build your energy up. A brand takes so much of your energy and you put your heart and soul into it. So you need to build your energy up. It's about energy. Like you need to cultivate just that endless energy. And the only way you can do that is to take care of yourself and be true to your purpose. So I think it's really important just to have those things in mind.
Prioritize you, to help prioritize others. Thank you so much, Rhian.
Thank you
it's
so
been a
much for
pleasure having
me.
you on. Thank you.
Thank you.
This episode of CEO Mum is brought to you by ARTAH, the science-backed supplement brand that supports your body from the inside out. Personally, I have been using and loving their essential magnesium, especially to help me with my sleep, because let's be honest, every working mum with young kids knows that deep level of exhaustion. And I love that they blend cutting edge science with high quality natural ingredients to target the body's systems, not just symptoms, so you can really see and feel the difference. They are not about quick fixes. Their award-winning supplements and nutrition programs are designed to create real long-lasting change. And as a thank you to our listeners, ARTAH is offering you 20% off. Just use the code CEOMUM. That's CEOMUM at checkout and explore their incredible range.